Hello, and welcome to the second episode of The Bitter Draft. My name is Phil, and today we're going to be talking about hard currency, and we'll talk about paper currency late in another episode. So let's go back. First, we established in episode 1 what money was, and money is really in those monetary metals in any form in the global system. So even a necklace can be considered money. I know that doesn't feel like it, but I promise it is. But raw money has many inefficiencies. It's cumbersome. So if you take your necklace to the pawn shop to sell it, for example, you won't right now take your necklace to the grocery store to buy something, but you may at a future time end up taking your necklace to a farmer to buy something. I don't know how bad a crash could be. But let's say you take your necklace to a farmer's market to a pawn shop to exchange it for currency, exchange it for paper dollars. The pawn shop owner has to test it to make sure it's real. He has to measure it, make sure that how much gold is actually in it, and that requires training and a keen eye to determine its value. Same thing if you bring in bullion to a bullion store, or if you bring in a numismatic coin, which are those old. A numismatic coin is a rare old coin. It's the ones that collectors are looking for, right? They have a value much higher than just the melt value of the money underneath it, right? So to determine the value, it takes a keen eye and some training, and it has to be measured and tested in every single transaction, right? If you went to, let's say we're in the apocalypse, right, and you cut off a bit of your necklace and take it to the farmer to trade for some berries or meat or whatever. And then at the next stop, you want to buy some gas, so you take it to the gas station and cut off a little bit more. Every single time you bring your money to the transaction, it has to be tested, because each time the person doesn't know if it's real or not. In fact, even if you went home and went back to the farmer, he might want to test it again, make sure you're not trying to pull a fugazi on him, right? And it can be very difficult to quantify. So if we were to think of something like length, for example, if I said, let's go back to the Dark Ages, when most people were completely illiterate and had no math beyond counting on their fingers, right? If I said something's this long, right? How would you be able to describe it to your friend? Now remember, you don't have any units of measurement. I don't have any units of measurement, and your friend doesn't either. So what you would say was it's the length between his thumb and his finger, and you can have a rough idea of what that's worth. Or how long that is, sorry. But, people's hands are different. Child hand would be down here, and someone with giant basketball hands might be, add a few more inches, right? And if you listen to the old stories of those times, there's always these fables of the crafty peasant does some good deed for the Lord, and the Lord rewards him with as much land as a horse can plow in a week. Now, you and I probably have no idea how much land a horse could plow in a week, but he would have a pretty good idea. Both of them would, right? So the Lord would understand what that means, and the person being rewarded would understand what that means as well. Or he could say, I'll reward you with as much silver as you can carry in 2 hands, right? And then, of course, the crafty man comes up with some clever trick, or has magic gloves that allow him to pick up way more than a standard person would be able to. So where was I? The unit of measurement was very rough, right? So I have this little pen here. If I want to say this is length, right? But what's cool about this pen is it's actually an engineering pen. So there are, I don't know if you can see it in here, there are units of, there you go. There's inches, and then there's centimeters. It's got both units of measurement on it. So if you think of this is the money, the length is the money, and the currency is the units of measurement, right? So when you look, let's go to the next slide here. When you look at a silver dollar, right, what is a silver dollar promising to be? It's saying, I am 1 ounce of pure silver, and I have the government stamp of $1 on it. So the one silver dollar, back when silver dollars were silver dollars, was a unit of standard. It was a standardized unit of money, right? Just like an inch is a standardized unit of length, right? It's not the actual length itself. It's just a way to measure the length. This pin is the length. This is how long the pin is. These little ticks on here are how you can break it down. And you can break it down another way too. You can use the centimeters, right? So instead of using silver dollars, you could use Mexican pesos back when they had currency in them, or any other hard currency, right? They're just different calculations. They're different ways to measure the actual value of the silver, and you actually don't need it. So I'll show you right here. This is you don't need a monetary value set up to it. So this right here is a silver round. This is a private mint of pure silver, and it has the exact same amount of silver as a silver dollar, but it's made privately, so it doesn't have the stamp of $1 on it. So some people think the dollar stamp means something, other people don't. That's up for individuals to decide. I don't think it does, because the money is what's the valuable thing. It's the silver. But some people prefer the standardization of the dollar, right? Even though what's weird is that this is much less likely to be counterfeited than the silver dollar. You're not going to see a fake silver coin. If someone's going to go to the trouble of making a fake coin, they're gonna make a fake dollar rather than a fake private round. Anyway, I'm getting a little bit off topic here. So let's talk about what is hard currency. So hard currency uses the actual money to make the currency. So they take the money, they shape it. It doesn't have to be a circle. Other times in history they've used bars, but they shape it, they stamp it, and they say this has our seal of approval, that this is what we say it is, and it has the monetary value we say it has. So money is the value, currency is the measurement in standardized units. I already said that. And it allows very quick calculations. So when you go to the store and let's say you go to the grocery store and you fill up your cart and you go to checkout, and hard money or hard currency hasn't been invented yet, or currency of any kind, right? So you take it and put it on the belt, and the cashier looks at it and he says, well, that's going to cost you as much silver as I can fit in my mouth, right? That's or some I guess they could use weights, and he busts out his the little scale and starts putting your the thing, but that takes can you imagine waiting in checkout for that? That would be just brutal, right? The line would just stretch out the door. So instead of the currency allows much faster calculations. If I say $5, then it's 5 ounces of silver with dollar stamps on them, right? Or if I say $4.25 or whatever the number is, right? And as long as the currency is trusted, measurement and testing are no longer required. So it can go much, much faster. In fact, you can go and do engage in debt agreements. So you can go to the bank and take out loans, that you can deposit money with banks and stuff, and you can do it very quickly, because you can say I'm borrowing $50 or I'm depositing $5, whatever, and it's just boop, done very quickly, based on the trust that the hard currency has the value that it says it has. Now, of course, the first thing anyone who has that trust is going to do is try and break it, but we're going to get into that in a minute. So there are problems with hard currency. It's still cumbersome. Carrying a big bag of raw silver and carrying a big bag of silver coins is still quite cumbersome, and that's why paper currency was developed. And we'll get into that later. I don't have time in this video, but the hard currency is still pretty cumbersome. And the next one is the coins wear down over time, and we've all been there. Well, we of a certain age have all been there, where you dig into your pocket and you pull out a quarter or a dime, and it just looks horrible. It looks like it's been run over by cars, and is like, what the heck happened to this coin? And you can see it's maybe it's 80% or 75% the size that it should be, and so the coins wear down, and then that's not as much of a problem with our fake money that we're using. But with hard currency, that's a big deal. So especially if you're talking about a gold coin, imagine you have a gold coin that a full ounce is $2,000 today, I'm just using dollar terms so that we can all understand each other. If that's worn down to 75% of its value, and you take it to a bank to deposit, you say, I want $2,000 worth of gold coin put in my account, please, right? They're gonna say, I don't, the face value doesn't seem to be reflecting the actual size of the coin anymore, so maybe we're not going to do that. And that's actually a law. It's called Gresham's Law. It's that when new coins, in a hard currency system, when new coins get issued, people keep the new, fresh big coins. They put those in their treasure chests in their basement, and they take their old, worn out, decrepit coins that are much smaller and worn down, and they use those to go buy things. So in the end, one of the problems is you wind up with is people hoarding the good money, and the bad money is just getting worse and worse and worse and worse. So that is a problem that needs to be dealt with. I know there's a bunch of hard currency advocates out there, and I just want to say there are problems with hard currency. I'm not opposed to it, but there are problems with it. And there's also the constant incentive to debase. And if you go back to the Roman Empire, the denarius, which is where the word dinero comes from. In fact, just about this is a little bit of an aside, but every word you can think of that has to do with money actually comes from silver. So in French, the word argent means money, and that's from argentum. And dinero comes from the denarius, which was a Roman silver coin. So this is the Antoninus, which is evolution of the denarius. So the denarius is, during the Julius Caesar, they used denarius, and then after the collapse of the second century, crisis of the second century, or was it third century? I don't remember. But during the collapse, they changed the coin name to the Antoninus. And back when it was the denarius, it was like 90% silver, 80% silver. After the crisis of the second century, it's debased down to 40, and then halfway through it's at 30, and you can see by the end here is there any silver? It's less than 5% silver in there. So they did that because the Roman emperors had a problem, right? They had these large armies that they had raised to go battle each other and all the rebels, and they needed to pay them. And so the emperor had a choice. He can say, listen guys, I only have enough money to pay half of you. The other half you got to wait till the next paycheck. That probably isn't going to go so well with the armies, right? So they had to pay them all. So instead of paying them, paying half of them, they paid them all with coins that were suspiciously smaller and had kind of a coppery tinge to it. And it had to be enough. It had to be just enough value that the soldier would grumble, because he knew they're not stupid, right? They know, but they wouldn't go into open rebellion over it. So the emperors had to make this careful calculation of like, geez, how much can we get away with here? Anyway, there's a constant incentive to debase. And when currencies completely collapse, like when you get around to this probably or less, my guess, I wasn't there, but my guess is people were just switching back to raw money again. You go to buy an ox, and the guy's like, I don't want these coins. I want gold bullion. All right, which did still exist. It's not like the gold went away. It just is being hoarded. All right. So let's go back to our caveman times, right? So we're gonna go back to the analogy of the little caveman village. I'm gonna say that Thrak invents coinage, right? So Thrak melts the gold into discs, and he calls them Thraks, and he puts his thumb as the gold is cooling, and it hurts like heck, but it does leave his stamp on the gold coin. Right, and the village is happy to trade with increased efficiency. So, excuse me. So the Thraks spread around, and the village is very happy to trade with them. It makes things much faster because they used to have to weigh the gold. The village wives would have to take the gold out of their ears to trade with. But now they have these little coins that they're all trading with, and everything's going great. But Crom, the village chieftain, he takes notice of this, and he's looking around. And he sees Thrak's little thumbprint, or maybe Thrak changed it to a little stick figure of himself, and he's looking at these Thraks floating around. He doesn't like it. He doesn't like it one bit. So Crom goes over to Thrak. He says, "You no make coin. Crom make coin. Thrak give Crom gold. Crom make the coin." Right? And so Crom, which represents the state, takes over the coinage and renames the currency to Croms. Now, I want to point out, nobody had a problem with Thrax, right? Thrax were just fine. Private rounds do just fine. There's not some mystical requirement that the state has to be the one that develops the coinage. But the state loves to take over the coinage because Crom gets to put his stick figure, the stick figure Thrak is completely unacceptable to Crom, right? That's a threat. That's a threat to the state, right? So Crom takes over the village coinage, puts his stick figure on it, and renames the currency to Croms. So now everyone's trading Croms instead of Thrax. Now Crom sits down and he starts thinking. He says, if I make the coins just a little bit smaller, right, or if I put a little bit of copper into them, then I can keep the gold. I can shave off a little bit of the gold, sprinkle the gold dust over here. I can make more jewelry for my wife, or I could go buy things with pure Crom coins. And the village people don't need to be any wiser. They're not going to figure it out. So he starts thinking of different ways to debase the currency because it enriches himself and his cronies, right? And that is a constant worry and fear that is a constant worry and fear of having currency, right? Is that the trust will be betrayed by those in charge of it. So that's enough for today. I'm going to wind it down here. I think I'm going to do paper currency, and it'll be next week. So have a great day. I need to figure out a better ending because I'm just kind of trailing off at the end of my episodes, but I'll figure out a sign off at some point. Okay, thanks, bye.